Welcome to the BaseCamp Barn Project. This week we'll be building some stairs. Don't be scared, there is some math involved, but we'll get through it. So come along, let's get back to work. Good morning. I just got back from the depot here in town with a big old load of lumber for our stairwell project. So it's going to be another almost $700 worth of wood. And I'm back to being framing. So we're framing in a landing and the stairs this weekend. So that's the project. Here we go. Now there's your layout for our landing, because it's going to be attached up here, and it'll be one step down from the floor level there, because I need all the room I can get from this point right here all the way back to here. The stairs are going to come to about right here. The first step will be right here. So that's going to be quite a stair step, 14 steps I believe. I'll have to recalculate once I get this built. But yeah, here we go. Now I know my pieces, I can get those cut, and get some top plates cut, and then start laying out the studs and build a couple little walls and get them up there and see where we end up. Down here shooting my grade. This area here just happens to be on the slope that they used to go from our living space level to our garage level. There's a difference of roughly 1 inch somewhere between the inside edge of this wall and the door opening. Right now I'm shooting my laser, and I got almost exactly a half of an inch difference from this point here on the floor to this point here on the floor. From this point to the wall, we're exactly level. But that way over there, this high by almost 7/8 of an inch. I have to adjust my studs to make the platform level right when we get up there. I'm not really too interested in seeing exactly where we are on the floor, because I'm going to be a step down. And I'm going to try to make my step roughly the same as all the other steps. So we'll be in the 7.5, 7 3/8, 7.5 inch range. And that's what I'm shooting for. So we'll do that first measurement, as I know what I am here against the wall, but we'll have to, kind of do our adjustment for all the studs as we come out here and see if we can make that adjustment right. All right, here's the math. We've got 119 inches from that bottom corner on the concrete to the top of the subfloor at my opening. So the subfloor is 5/8 of an inch, and the step height is 7.5. So that's 8 1/8 that we subtract from 119 inches to get us to 110 7/8. We're going to put floor joists up there, and they're going to be out of 2x10s, which are 9 1/4. So we subtract that, and it gets us to 101 5/8. And we're going to have 2 headers. That gets us 3 inches, because there's 2 2x4s up there. That's 98 5/8. And then we have a footer, which is 1.5 inches on the ground. So that total stud height against the wall right there is going to be 97 1/8. And then to get this stud out here, that's a 1/2 inch longer, we have to add a 1/2 inch. So that stud out there will be 97 5/8. And then we'll cut those and put them, in place, and then I'll measure the other 2 studs and get those roughly the right spot or the right length. I don't want to have to figure out calculating them. I can just measure them. Alrighty, first wall up, pretty plumb. pretty straight. I need to put a level up there to see if the math worked down here. I think it will, so. But it's time for a little short lunch break, and then we'll continue on. It's a little bit high here, but there's no weight on it. I can move the whole bottom there. So the bottom piece, that's probably a little bit warped. Once we get some weight on this, I think it'll come right down. And certainly the foam that we put underneath it might hold it up just a little bit too, until we get some weight on it. So I'm right there on target. So we'll carry on. Well, there you go. Landing is done. Taken just about the whole day to get it all done. Top's glued down, screwed down. It's nice and level. And my step here is 7.5 inches. So it worked out perfectly. So I hope you can see this. This is going to be my notepad for what we're doing. So here's the top of the landing. And it's 112.5 inches. And if you do the math at 7.25 inches per step, it'll take 15.5 steps. So if you just say divide that by 14 or 15, because that's how many steps we're going to have. If you divide that by 15, it works out to exactly 7.5 per step. So our rise per step is going to be 7.5 inches. And our run is going to be 10. Each step is going to be 10 inches deep. So if you do the math and say, well, the top step is the platform, so instead of 15 you do 14. Well, it's 14 times 10. You know, your total length is going to be 140 inches. And so if you do the, oh, did I do the math wrong? No, I did the math right. If you do the math to figure out what your stringer length is, because your first step is going to be here, you got to add another 10 inches to get to your stringer length. And your stringer length is 187.5 or half, 187.5 inches. So it all kind of works out pretty even, pretty nice. And the other thing that I kind of like is if we measure our step, or if we do a step, an individual step, and do your triangle, and this is 12.5 and this is 10, this works out to, I'm sorry, that works out to 12.5 if this is 7.5. Yeah, 7.5. And so the math works out pretty good. And we're going to do that right now on the stringer here and do the layout. And the other thing that I've done is I've taken my T-square and I put some stops on it so that we're at 7.5 of a rise and 10 on our run. And then I'll do the layout at the 12.5 number all the way up, and then we'll see how that works out. But that's, don't drop this. That's kind of the first step of the math on doing stair steps. So we'll see how it works out. So here we go. I put little marks at every 12.5 dimension. And it's real helpful because these corners are rounded. So it's really hard to see where your 10-inch and your 7.5-inch number is. And these marks are very helpful. So here I've done my layout for a first couple of steps. And I'm going to continue on down. It all works out wonderfully. And then I'll show you a little trick that we'll do to manage all of the steps and the riser pieces that we're going to put in. It's pretty easy, it's pretty simple, but you got to do it, or else if you forget, you're going to have to take it all back down. But here's a 12-inch and a half, there's a 12.5, there's a 12.5. So I got it all marked, and it's hopefully going to work out. We got 15 steps, but then the last one is the floor, so you end up cutting it off. So it's just part of the layout that you have to do in order to get all the things to work out right. So I've got the layout, everything worked out beautifully. I'm using an ink pen because I think it makes a nice sharp line that's easier to make sure you've got it in the right spot. Sometimes pencils, you know, you might have a flat spot on the pencil and it might wander a little bit. But here's the trick. The layout is laid out. We got 15 steps. But obviously the first step is the floor. And we're putting 2.5-inch treads on, or 1.5-inch thick treads on, and we're putting 1.5-inch thick risers on to support the steps. And so what you need to do before you start cutting everything, or you could do all your cuts and then cut it afterwards, but because the floor is the first step, so to speak, and we're going to put an 1.5-inch step tread on top of each one of these steps, we need to raise our bottom cut by 1.5 inches so that it makes this stair step riser the same 7.5. And if you go by that logic, you go down here to this end, because we're putting risers on every step, it shoves the step out a little bit. But we're not going to put a riser on the top because we're going to screw it to the landing. So we need to take away that riser because it's going to be sticking out down here that little bit, but we're not going to need it up here at the top. So when we cut our top piece, that's going to be the cut line. And that's just part of this trick that now it shifts everything so that you allow for the room for your 1.5-inch treads and your 1.5-inch risers everywhere. Instead of figuring it out in here, you just do your ends and voila, it should work out. Well, there's the first one cut, the first stringer. It's up. It's at the right spot up there. 9 inches down, which would make a 7.5-inch step as soon as you put the step on. And then down here, we're just a little bit long because this level here is a 5/8 of an inch higher than that level. So this is made for that level. So I'm gonna have to take like 5/8 of an inch off of this bottom here for it to be perfect. And we're real close to our 140-inch number. We're off maybe 1/2 inch or so, which isn't bad, but that's where the first step is going to be. As soon as you round this corner, boom, you'll be taking your first step. I've got deep enough cuts here for the next stringer. They're all stacked and screwed together, so I'll finish cutting this one, and it'll cut into the next one. And may have to remark the corners just so I know where the corners are so I don't overcut them. That kind of looks like what might happen. And but I don't want to make a mistake. I'm getting tired. I'm getting hot. It's been a long day building this stuff. I figured it'd take 2 days to do it. So tomorrow we'll glue and screw the steps in after we cut the other 4 stringers. And we'll be able to walk up to the storage area, I hope. So we'll see y'all tomorrow and we'll keep on digging. Well, good morning. We are here the next day working on these stairs again. I've got, just kind of was working, just cutting all the pieces out for all the steps. I really liked the way that we did it, you know, by putting them all stacked together. But I didn't have that deep of a saw to get through even 2 pieces. And so what I've kind of discovered is anytime we're cutting around a knot or something, the blade, when it was further in, seemed to want to wander just a little bit. So I had to remark everything as we got to the next layer. So one thought, before you start and you do your first layout like we did at, you know, the 12.5-inch marks, I think we need to put a scribe down all of the pieces so that you have all of the 12.5 marks marked on all of the pieces, just so you can verify where you are. I think most of my start points were good, but what I found was we started to wander the deeper that we got. Like right here's a line going around this knot that just wandered just a little bit. And it seemed to always be shallower. It didn't seem to ever go deeper. It always seemed to want to go shallower. But I don't think it matters terribly if you're off by a 1/16 of an inch here or there, because the steps are out of 2x12s. And they're typically going to be kind of cattywampus anyway. So the glue and the screws will take up any deviation that you might have. But I got that done. The next step here is to be cutting the baseboard that goes against the wall. Like I got here, this isn't going against the wall. This will be going against the baseboard that'll go against the wall. I just wanted to put this up last night just to make sure all the math worked out. Because if the steps were going to go past this door opening, that wouldn't be too good. So we did the math right. The math worked out, which usually math does unless you make a mistake somewhere. But what I didn't do last night was I used this as my basis. This dimension here was my 112.5 number. But now I need to go and take the laser and see what it is over here at this point. I think this is the low point, but that might be a little bit lower. So we'll have to adjust our bottoms kind of a little bit depending on what that number is relative to what these numbers are. So that's kind of the next step here before we get too far is to clear our path out and get our numbers and get our marks on the floor for where these risers are going to go, or these stringers, and start getting them in place. We'll put a couple notches in them. I'll put a toe kick or a toe piece down here, and I'm thinking I'm going to put a toe piece up here too. So we'll probably put a 2x4 up there and make a notch in this for the 2x4 and attach it that way. So a couple little notches, a couple little more pieces to cut, but we'll start stacking steps here within the hour, I hope. So let's get back to work. Alrighty, we cleaned up a little bit, got a little swept and some of the bigger chunks away so that we don't trip over them. And I just finished with the laser here. So our point, this is going to be our corner, outside corner of the stairs, is exactly the same height as the outside corner down there. And we are still 5/8 of an inch higher over here than here. So when I put my pieces, I got the layout marks. I can measure which each one of these risers are going to be, or which each one of these stringers are going to be, and cut them. This won't get cut, but this will get cut a little bit, this will get cut a little bit, and that'll get cut a little bit. So we'll do the math there and get those cut. I'm also going to put a notch in it for a 2x4 here on the floor so that we can screw it to the floor and be nice and stable. And then we got to start measuring what our step treads are going to be, because they're going to hang out just a little bit as we go up. You know, the same layout that they're going to lay out here. If it's 1 1/4 inch, I'll hang them out 1 1/4 inch to make them look pretty. And oh, we got to get that back piece cut too. So a couple more pieces to cut, a couple more things to do before we start laying down the treads. Well, there you go. A little bit of cutting, a little bit of massaging, and I got the 4 stringers up. I got the toe kick down here screwed into the concrete so it's not moving. And here's our first couple pieces of the back kick, or the riser, and the step. So the step's going to stick out about 1 1/4 inch, just like it's going to stick out down here 1 1/4 inch. And so that's what's going to go along here all the way up. So I'm going to take a little lunch break. It's about that time. And then when I get back, we'll cut up a bunch of lumbers to get all that stuff cut. And then it's a gluing and screwing process. I'll probably put something like these guys up here somewhere in the middle just to help keep everybody straight, because they're already beginning to warp a little bit. So I need to get these things in before it gets too crazy. Well, we almost got it done. I ran out of screws. I scrounged up enough to do one more step, but I had to go to the store to get some more screws. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more steps to go. So I'm going to carry on, but I've just been using this here glue to glue everything down and screw everything down. So it's all good. It's not squeaky. It's not moving much. I'm hoping it's going to be all good. It should be all good for a while. Whew. Well, there you go. You can walk up and down it, and it's very stable, very nice. Doggy likes it too. Doesn't move a bit. It shakes maybe right to here if you make it shake. You know, if you jump on it, you can feel it maybe just a little bit right in the middle. But this is our entryway to the storage loft. We'll have to come up with some handrails here eventually. I might have to put something temporary up for, you know, workman's comp or something. But the last step is perfect where it's supposed to be. A little bit of slope here we've compensated for. I mean, it all feels really good, doesn't it, puppy? Does it feel good? Does the steps feel good? Did you leave your ball up there? We'll go get it. Go get your ball. It's Sunday. I'm gonna call it a day. It's about 5 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've got any comments, please make them below. Puppy's chewing on some lumber that I've got down here on the floor. So she's hungry, so we're gonna go get a bite to eat and do a little relaxation here. So we'll see you tomorrow.